Okay, my background. I'm trained as an engineer, specifically in computer engineering, instrumentation, and I'm most widely known for inventing. I'm an innovator. I've invented various PIN technologies for credit cards and computer access, music protection technology, all sorts of small devices, presently working on a wind turbine system.
Okay.
Before that, I've worked as a designer for aircraft engines for Rolls-Royce, and even had a stint for a short while as a pilot with the Royal Air Force. My interest in UFOs started as a teenager, largely because of where I live, and there were periods of intense UFO activity. They were a puzzle. I needed to know what these things were. They weren't obviously aircraft I knew of. They didn't seem to be ours. They seemed quite magical and mysterious. This spurred my interest over many years, and as I became older I became more able to study these things from a more scientific and objective point of view. My first encounter with the crop circle phenomenon occurred in 1991. This was in response to my UFO interest. I was trying to establish if there was a UFO connection to crop circle formation. This occurred at the corner of Eastfield in near the village of Alton Barnes in Wiltshire. This is approximately 3 o'clock in the morning, which was similar to the event we've had this past week. The difference here was that I actually saw an illuminated object in association with this formation. Prior to that, I was acutely aware of a consciousness that was associated with this area. There was almost a taunting, slightly childlike feeling to this consciousness. It was very intense in that the feeling you have when somebody's looking at you from behind, it is like that feeling magnified 1,000 times. It's as though they're looking at me and I cannot see them. This came to a peak on the morning of the observation, and the entirety of what I saw at that point was a small, dimly illuminated disc, and this we're talking very, very dimly illuminated, so much so that it was only visible from the corner of the eye. As you focus on the centre, it faded away because the centre of the eye is not quite as sensitive as the peripheral vision. The small disc moved across the top of the corn quite leisurely. It then expanded out to approximately 20 feet. At that point the corn shook. You could hear the corn actually rattling and shaking as it shook, and then in synchronization it all fell. The total process time was approximately 3 seconds from the first expansion of the light to the falling of the corn. After the corn fell, the light retracted to a small dinner plate sized dull glow and moved across the top of the corn, just gliding away over towards the Pusey direction of the field. After it had passed, having gone to the circle, I found a simple circle approximately 20 feet across, approximately the same size as the extended light effect. That was all I saw. I felt when it made it that it was actually taunting me. I was sat there at that time with an SLR camera, with a standard film camera, and what is now would be considered a very unsophisticated camcorder. The camcorder took 2 seconds to cue. It recorded nothing. It wasn't light sensitive enough. And the SLR camera, by the time I'd reached the shutter release, which is on a flexible release operation, the entire effect had occurred. This led me to have a rematch as such, in that it occurred to me that the only way such a fast-acting effect could be recorded, as obviously who will believe you? You are alone in a field in the middle of the night in the dark and you see something. With the best will in the world, you cannot really expect somebody to believe you purely on your own word. Unless you have physical evidence, who would believe it? Because it was so fast acting, very unexpectedly so, I'd expected, when I went to the field, I expected to see large UFOs appearing out of the skies, flattening the corn as they go. None of this. A very fast acting effect, and the dullest of lights under the most extremely dark lighting conditions. just before dawn. It seemed to me the only way to do it was to have continually running cameras. Hence I moved to experimenting with CCTV cameras, such as this one, the one we used in Eastfield. This is a 2/100th of a lux sensitivity monochrome infrared and visible light CCTV camera. Second only to an image intensifier, this is probably one of the most sensitive cameras you can actually obtain. These we had connected directly to a bank of VCR recording machines, which ran off a battery power supply, which provided a mains inversion, which provided the voltage to run the recorders. They ran all night, apart from 30 to 40 seconds, maybe 1 minute of tape change halfway through the night. In addition to this camera, because this would be the scattergun. This would be, you point these in all directions and hopefully something will happen within the field of view of one of them. In addition to that, for my scattergun we have the sniping rifle. This is a Sony VX2100. This is a very sensitive semi-professional camcorder which has 10 times zoom and has a light sensitivity of 1 lux. When all else fails, we brought in this. It actually worked in 2 parts on the night we used it. This normally runs to a VCR as part of the constant running video, but because of the constraints of the amount of weight that could be carried onto the top of an uphill, we used this to record into a JVC GRDV 700 mini DV format camcorder. This we used as a spot scope. So this would be mounted on the tripod and we would sweep the fields at intermittent intervals and record directly onto the JVC camcorder, where we could see on the display exactly what the image intensifier was viewing. The idea being that if there is anybody in the field or there are any faint light effects that we can't see with the eye, we will pick them up by sweeping the fields. Similarly, any infrared or visible effects that are greater than a pinprick will actually be visible in some form on the scattergun of the CCTV camera. Each of the devices has limitations and advantages, so using a combination of the devices, the hope was to record the best available evidence of anything that's forming.